The Animal Crossing series is beloved by many. While it's always a fun time stomping Goombas or searching for the Triforce, there's times where all you want to do is relax, redecorate your house,
and plot your devious plans to take over the world.
Point is, Animal Crossing is something everybody can enjoy, and to celebrate the release of Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Nintendo Switch, in a few months when the game is finished, we'll be sharing some trivia on one of Nintendo's most relaxing franchises. I'm your host for today, The James Rolls, and in today's episode of the Gaming Gallery, we'll be sharing some random, fascinating trivia on the Animal Crossing series. Animal Crossing began its history during the Nintendo 64 era, although not in the way that you may expect. Yes, there was a game called Animal Forest on the Nintendo 64 DD, but Animal Crossing's history potentially goes even further back. Nintendo veterans Shigeru Miyamoto, Shigesato Itoi, and Tsunekazu Ishihara were working on a project for the Nintendo 64 DD called Cabbage. We have a whole other episode discussing this particular project, but the short version of the story was that it was a pet simulation game where players could take care of their creatures called Cabbage. The Cabbage creatures could be taken care of on the Nintendo 64, potentially be taken on the go through a Game Boy Color, and even continue living its life even when the game was turned off. Cabbage would eventually be cancelled due to a lack of progress, but the idea of a world continuing on even when the game wasn't being played may have been influential in the development of Animal Crossing. Dobutsu no Mori, or Animal Forest, was built around the idea of moving into a new town and getting to know your neighbors. Series creator Katsuya Iguchi had to move halfway across Japan to work with Nintendo in Kyoto, moving away from everyone he knew. He hoped to replicate this feeling with Animal Forest by having players end up in a town where they didn't know anybody, but would get to know everyone over time. After the commercial failure of the Nintendo 64 DD, the game was moved on to a cartridge. The 64 DD had an internal clock which Animal Forest would have used to keep track of in-game time, but a workaround had to be done when moving the project onto a cartridge. Internal clocks would be built into the game cartridges, and players would have to manually set the in-game time when moving into a new village. Players could also use the Nintendo 64 expansion pack to visit other players' towns. Less than 8 months after the release of Animal Forest, Nintendo released an enhanced port for the Nintendo GameCube called Animal Forest Plus. This new version would include new features, such as not having to manually set the clock, the introduction of the Able Sisters and Blathers, and so on and so forth. Unlike the Nintendo 64 version, the GameCube port would be released overseas under the name Animal Crossing. However, localization proved to be a huge nightmare, as Animal Forest contained very specific references to Japanese culture. Many of the developers working on the localization project went even as far to say that translating an Animal Crossing game took nearly twice as much work than the average RPG. To accommodate the extensive dialogue changes, the international version contained several new holidays, including Toy Day. Nintendo of Japan was so impressed with the localization that they translated Animal Crossing back into Japanese under the new name Animal Forest E+. E+ contained a few new features, most of which would be added to future installments in the series. The biggest new addition was support for the e-reader, an accessory for the Game Boy Advance that allowed players to unlock new content by scanning special cards. This would allow players to choose which villagers would move into their town by scanning respective cards. This feature wouldn't return to the series until the welcome Amiibo update for Animal Crossing New Leaf, which allowed players to pick their villagers by scanning Amiibo cards. Animal Crossing would continue to rise in popularity over the years, with the success of Wild World and City Folk. When the time came to begin develop a new game for the Nintendo 3DS, the developers were having trouble figuring out a good way to differentiate the game from its predecessors. Even though Animal Crossing City Folk was widely loved by many, it was also heavily criticized for being too similar to Wild World. To avoid this problem with the new game, it was decided to give players more freedom on customizing their towns outside of just their homes. How exactly they'd do this was something the developers struggled with for over a year until it was decided to make the player the mayor of the town. This is the reason for Tortimer's reduced role in New Leaf. When the Nintendo 3DS was first announced, several demos were made to show off the new handheld, including that version of Paper Mario Sticker Star, which everyone got excited about, until Miyamoto decided that nobody likes stories in Mario RPGs. One of these demos was for a new Animal Crossing game, under the title Animal Crossing Jump Out. There's honestly not much to say about the game aside from its final name changing to New Leaf, some cosmetic changes, developers having trouble figuring out what types of new animals to bring to the game, the usual stuff. Although, we would like to take the time to appreciate New Leaf for introducing the world's best secretary, Isabelle, who has gained massive popularity in the Animal Crossing fanbase, becoming the series' poster character for future installments, and even becoming a playable character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Fun fact, did you know that Isabelle's Japanese name is Shizue, a pun off the breed of the dog Shih Tzu? Between the releases of Animal Crossing New Leaf and Animal Crossing New Horizons in a few months, the Animal Crossing series saw a number of releases, including Happy Home Designer, Amiibo Festival, and the series' first mobile game, Pocket Camp. Happy Home Designer began development as Nintendo wanted to give players a way to decorate their neighbors' houses. The development team always had a fun time working on villager houses, seeing it as a great way to express their individual personalities. Amiibo Festival was developed because the Animal Crossing team wanted to find any kind of excuse to create Animal Crossing Amiibo figures. No, seriously. Unfortunately, both of these games wouldn't see a warm reaction from fans when they were introduced at E3 2015, particularly Amiibo Festival. The lack of any true Animal Crossing game on the Wii U left fans upset that Nintendo would release a spin-off Mario Party-style game instead, even though our editor still personally enjoys the game. Several modes from Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival would later get ported to the Welcome Amiibo update for Animal Crossing New Leaf, most notably, the Desert Island Escape minigame. The Welcome Amiibo update also introduced many new features to Animal Crossing New Leaf, including the aforementioned ability to choose which villagers would move in by scanning their cards, although it's also possible to get villager portraits of characters like Tortimer by scanning their Amiibo card when talking to Wisp. Other features include a new storage system, new furniture based off Splatoon, a campsite, a Meow coupon system, and things of that nature. One of the new furniture pieces is a Wii U console, which can play Desert Island Escape. The description of this item says, "Some artists aren't appreciated in their time," referencing the poor sales of the Wii U. A few years later, the series would make its mobile debut with Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. This game actually ended up getting delayed for over a year, as the project saw a massive overhaul close to launch. Pocket Camp was originally going to focus on decorating a player's house to share with friends. However, Nintendo felt this wasn't exciting enough for their first mobile Animal Crossing game. So, the project started development from scratch to make it play more closely to a traditional Animal Crossing game. Eventually, becoming the Pocket Camp we all know and think is alright for a mobile game. Despite some bumps in the road, the future is looking bright for the Animal Crossing series. The release of New Horizons on Nintendo Switch in March 2020 will bring returning players and a new generation alike playing with their villagers, for years to come. That's all for today, so thank you all for watching this episode of the Gaming Gallery. Subscribe button, like button, bell button, you know what to do. I've been your host for today, The James Rolls, and if you'd like to hear me talk more about Animal Crossing, be sure to check out my Let's Play of Animal Crossing New Leaf. It's a pretty great game, and definitely one of the best on the 3DS. Unless you have to deal with certain villagers in your town that shall not be named. Thank you for watching this episode of the Gaming Gallery, and remember... always save your game.